One area the Guardians know they need to improve for over a decade now is the outfield. So, of course, the free agent market has one great player and a bargain bin filled of, oh, yeah, I remember that guy. We're diving into the free agent outfield fits for the Guardians on today's show.
Tanner Bobby of the Guardians, and you're listening to Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into another episode of Locked On Guardians, our favorite half hour of the day. We hope it is yours too, because for the next half hour, we are talking about your Cleveland Guardians, as we do here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, your Guardians every day. I'm Justin Lada, one of your two co-hosts for the last 3 years before I came on the show and joined my friend and co-host Jeff Ellis. I have spent 18 years covering the Guardians minor league system as an editor-in-chief, prospect writer, and many other things along the way.
And I'm Jeff Ellis. I have been here since Locked On brought in baseball. Before that, I was a national writer at Scout and 24/7, focused on prospects in the draft. I want to thank you for making today's episode your first listen today and every day, wherever it is you get podcasts, as well as giving a big shout out to all of our everydayers out there. Thank you for joining us each and every day.
Yeah, we do appreciate you being here and hanging out with us, talking some Guards ball, even when the sun don't shine past 5:30 anymore. But hey, free agency is starting today. That's why we're talking about the outfield and the free agent fits for the Guardians, the one area they need to upgrade the most, probably. We'll talk about whether or not a trade or a free agent acquisition is the most likely place for them to improve. We'll talk about where in the market the Guardians might play for free agents, especially in the outfield. And we'll start off giving you a outlook for the market for free agency in the outfield. Before we do all that, today's episode of Locked On Guardians brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Right now, if you're a new customer, you can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you will get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app. Today, we're talking about Domingo Rosario Cowgill. Come on, baby. I was trying to bring that into a song there, and nobody's here to hear me sing. But Eddie Rosario, Domingo Santana. Who else you got out there? Random outfielders.
I mean, sometimes it works out. Like Austin Jackson, remember that one?
Yes, there's Austin Jackson. There's that. Rajay Davis.
Davis was
serviceable. You got your Colin Cowgills, your Marlon Birds. Yeah.
JB Shuck, right?
JB Shuck. Ooh. Yeah, one of the reasons I think the Guardians lost. Was he the reason
Melky Cabrera, Milkman.
Yeah, he got DFA'd once and then came back that same season. Actually, was not bad in 2018, but that whole team was
Nolan Jones feels like a name to add to the list of.
Yeah, he'll be fitting his way onto there. Hey, I mean Niger Morgan, Tony Plush. You gotta love Tony Plush.
He had a good month.
Did he have a good month? I don't even remember if he had a good month.
It felt like it was a good month, and then it imploded, but I could be wrong.
I was more excited for Tony Plush than I was for Niger Morgan. Coco Crisp, he was back as a rando. That actually worked out pretty. That was a trade. You got your Ryan Rayburns. That's what the Guardians have been missing, really. Yeah, they haven't had a good. They haven't had a Rayburn. They haven't had a Geyer. Yeah, they haven't had that in a while.
They need a Rayburn to Geyer.
And yeah, the market there. I mean, there is a guy technically that does fit that role in the outfield market, but I don't know if they're going to get him. The outfield market, like I said at the top of the show, it's literally one great player, and then oh yeah, I do remember that guy. Cody Bellinger did have the highest WAR by Fangraphs in 2025, slightly over Kyle Tucker. Because I think Kyle Tucker missed more time with an injury, but Kyle Tucker is like
100% that case.
Yeah, Kyle Tucker is the cream of the crop. He's going to be, an 8-year, $400 million outfielder in this market. Cody Bellinger gets the second most money. And after that, it's kind of like, all right, well, which wart are you comfortable with bringing in? Because that's what it looks like, right? And even Bellinger, has his own warts. He's not the player he was when he was coming up with the Dodgers. It's literally Kyle Tucker. And it's like, okay, which flaw, fits your team the best at this point? That's what the free agent market looks like for outfielders. It's the one area you really need the Guardians to upgrade somehow. And it's literally maybe the worst part of this free agent class.
No, gosh, having Tucker helps raise the floor. And I think there's a clear 3, maybe, basically from what I've seen, maybe even a clear 4 with after Tucker, it feels like Grisham, or, after Tucker and Bellinger, then you got Grisham, who, we'll talk about because he has his warts. And then Harrison Bader, most people have kind of in that 4 spot, or Ryan O'Hearn. But those are kind of your top 5. Like, I will say this, there's at least a top 5. Having the superstar at the top helps it. Starting pitching is pretty weak. I think relievers are a good spot in this current mix. And I know it was interesting because, like, I read Keith Law's piece and he goes, it's a good free agent group. I'm like, is it really? It doesn't feel like it's because catching, there's one catcher. Like, catching is the worst position in this. Like, there's one dude and then no one else. And it's like starting pitching, it's all older arms. And then outfield, we're like, it's not good. Like, so where is it good? It's not good at shortstop. It's not good
at relief. It's good at the bullpen.
Yeah,
That's literally,
like, to me, it's a bad free agent group. I don't understand any other logic or any other take that it's not a bad group of free agents, unless you're just looking at the top.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of star power at the top. You've got, Dylan Cease and Pete Alonso and Kyle Tucker and
Kyle
Schwarber. You've got great guys at the top in the free agent class, but the mid-market free agents, like, it's going to go one of two ways to me. We're going to have it picked over before we get to January because people are just going to take contracts because they are afraid of going too deep into the offseason because of the uncertainty going into the next season with a lockout. Or you're going to get a lot of guys who get, I don't want to say collusion, but you're going to get a lot of guys who wait to see if they can get something better. And then we get here past the Super Bowl, and all of a sudden, spring training starts next week. And, well, Cedric Mullins hasn't signed yet, so let's give him a call. Like, it's either going to go pretty early or it's going to go very late.
I feel like we've seen so many guys opt out that they're not as afraid of this market as maybe you and I thought they would be.
Maybe. I mean, I do think that there's a chance we see a lot of one-year deals because guys might be willing to take the higher annual average value right now. Like, go out and load up on, $25-30 million for 1 year, go back into the pool next year and see what happens. Like,
I think
certain
teams
guys in this class going to be okay with that?
With changes.
Yeah, and that's what I expect teams to offer too. I think teams that are not the Dodgers, that are not the Mets, I think are very much going to be playing in the, well, we'll give it $25 million for 2026, but we're not giving you 2 years because we have no idea where revenue is going to come from next year because we're going to lock out. So I think Cleveland included, everyone's going to try to do the 1 year deal thing. And I think maybe players are gearing up for that too. I think they're gearing up for the fact that they could see, well, we're not going to get, the 3 and 4 year deals, especially this outfield class, right? Like, Kyle Tucker is going to get his. He's in a class all of his own. And then after that, I think everyone's going to try to not settle for 1 year deals, but they're going to try to get the best, I think, annual average value they can and go from there. Like, that's because I think that's what they know teams are going to do. And if you're not going to get the multi-year deal, you might as well load up and get the $25 million you can, right?
Yeah, it's just, for a lot of players out there, it's been interesting who have turned down kind of guaranteed money to think that they can get more, or maybe they're going. So I think we're in an honest to goodness situation where nobody knows. Like, no one is sure about what next year is going to be like. So, you're just kind of trusting your gut and seeing what's out there. But yeah, it's been a good mix because every time I start to feel like, oh, no one is opting out, no one is opting in, and then Flaherty and Bieber opt in tonight after it being like, wow, Ha-Seong Kim, that's a surprise opt out. Like, all these guys, I'm like, oh, why would you opt out of that? And then the guys who I thought were no doubts to opt out opted in. So I don't know where I'm coming or going.
It's a big off season for agents, right? This is because this is their last chance to get their clients some money before things get uncertain next year, and whatever advice they give them this off season, has to pay off. So it's a big off season for a lot of guys who are free agents, and it's a big off season for a lot of those agents to make their money too. All right, so where, given all that, will the Guardians play in free agency? What area of the market will they be in? Will they even sign a free agent in the outfield? We'll talk about that next on the rest of today's Locked On Guardians. This episode of Locked On Guardians brought to you by Prize Picks. You ever get decision fatigue? You make so many decisions during the day and you're just tired of it? Well, if you make the right decision on Prize Picks, you can get paid. So that's the best way to do it. Don't miss any of the excitement during the NBA season, NFL, NHL, all that kind of good stuff. If you haven't tried it yet, Prize Picks, very, very simple. to play. All you're doing is picking more or less on stat projections for at least 2 player stats. And if you get those right, you're going to win. It takes less than 1 minute to set up a lineup anywhere you can play. Prize Picks, Cavs back in action tonight. You can pick points on Donovan Mitchell, rebounds, Evan Mobley. Hey, Darius Garland might play. You can stack those stats as well. And if he leaves the game early with an injury, that's okay, because Prize Picks has the injury reboot that saves your lineup from a loss. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB. That's going to get you $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. So that's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Thanks for hanging with us again here on this episode of Locked On Guardians. We are free every single day, everywhere and anywhere you are listening to podcast. Would love to be part of your morning routine, if your daily routine, if we're not already. So auto download on all your favorite audio apps and take us with you wherever you go. And hit the bell on YouTube so you're notified when episodes go live, as well as when we do go live for any reason, any breaking news. When the Guardians do sign that big major league free agent outfielder or any response news, all that kind of stuff on YouTube as well. So I do think there are some fits for the Guardians, despite the fact we pretty much just crushed the entire class saying it's poop. But there are some guys out there that could fit. I think the question really is, what, we said before, what warts are you willing to accept? Who fits this team the best? How can you minimize your own team's weaknesses that you have already by bringing somebody in who complements them? Because that's what they're looking for, right? We're not talking about the Kyle Tuckers, the Cody Bellingers, which is really the only 2 outfielders in the market that I think you can feel confident in future projection on. But which guys complement the team the best? And I think you and I have said before, Rob Refsnyder is that guy who complements the team the best, who has, the right strengths, the right weaknesses to minimize. But I think all logic and reporting points back to Rob Refsnyder going back to the Red Sox. I'd be surprised if he even gets any sort of rumors to go anywhere else. I have a feeling free agency opens today. Would you be shocked if the Red Sox signed to a deal before we even get to the winter meetings?
No, I would not at all. And I got to be honest too. I still think Bellinger is a little bit of a far from a sure thing. I mean, the Cubs gave him away a year ago.
That's true. That's true.
And that's the thing. His whole since the MVP, it was bad, good. He got that contract from the Cubs. Another thought. I don't know if Bellinger is the guess, because his cost per his consistency isn't there, as opposed to someone I'll just throw a name out now, like Mike Yastrzemski, right? His cost is going to be low, but that dude, I think, is 5 straight years now above league average production, and he is older. There is that, but I would rather bet on the guy who's been a little more consistent, even if the highs aren't as high. At this point in time with this team, I just need some consistency. I just need a 2-win outfielder. I'm not asking for stars. I'm asking for average.
It's funny you say that, because there is a guy who didn't have 2 wins above replacement last year, but does on paper do some of the things Cleveland could use, right? This is a guy who hits right-handed. He hits lefties. He actually hit righties last year too. He plays the outfield, mostly outfield now. He plays some first base. He used to play third base. They don't need him at third base as much, but a right-handed hitter who can play the outfield, who has great arm strength, poor range, which is what Cleveland really likes, right? They don't care about your range. They care if you can throw the heck out of the ball, and this guy can. That guy, Jeff, is Miguel Andújar, who the Guardians could have had forever ago for Francisco Lindor if they really wanted. Who every team obviously wanted in a trade. Miguel Andújar last year, 822 OPS, very, very good whiff rate, very good strikeout rate, and unfortunately, that's about where it ends. Expected stats think that he might have overperformed.
He's a fraud. He's a fraud.
Yeah. He's a guy who fits kind of some of the needs they have. He's probably a guy who's going to fit into their price range. But yeah, I think he overperformed last year based on the BABIP was incredibly high. The unfortunate thing is he crushed lefties and he also hit righties. He had a 171 at WRC plus against lefties, 108 against righties. That'd have been great on this team. I know what you're going to say. Well, he probably benefited from playing in Sacramento, and then he got traded to the Reds. Well, he had a 122 WRC plus on the road and a 127 at home. So he was consistent last year everywhere. However, I just don't think he's repeating it. But so I'm not really sure that's the first guy I'd want to go to.
9-year career, and you're telling me 2 seasons have been good, and I'm saying I want consistency. So I'm like, no, thank you. Let someone else gamble. Like
that's where the market is. That's literally like where we're talking. Like,
but I mean, I guess like for me, it's like he's had 2 good years out of 9. Like this is, I have no interest in
his
a guy
rookie
like
year
that.
and last year.
Yeah, like I said, that's where I'm like, Yastrzemski intrigues me. Randall Grichuk. Like if you want to buy low, give me Grichuk, who is probably just a platoon bat. But you and I talked off air. It's like the numbers weren't good, but all the expected stats were, and he had a career low BABIP. It's like I'd go there. Heck, give me Ahmed Rosario as a platoon candidate who can play all over and do things rather than giving me someone like Miguel Andújar. Because here's the thing, Rosario is going to be cheaper because he doesn't have power. Andújar has some degree of power.
But what does this team need? It needs power.
I mean, let's be real honest. It just needs offense. Like, yeah, it needs power, but this team can't afford to buy power in free agency. You can't. And Andújar's power isn't. Okay, Andújar's going to have a negative WAR next year. I'll say it right now. He's going to go back to being who he's always been because the data doesn't show any change. Yeah, there's no change in his data outside of he ran into some balls this year. Like baseball, some guys do have those spikes where they're more lucky than good. They had too many putrid points, too many black holes. As much as I'd love to get power, this team can never buy it in free agency. They got to trade for it or develop it. So I think just try to find improvements. Try to get from putrid to just mildly disgusting.
F's to C's. Yes, F's to C's is where you want to get to.
I'll go F's to D's right now.
Yeah, fair enough. These get degrees, man. These get degrees. So the Guardians made the playoffs with a F offense and F power, and imagine what they could do with D power, double D power, double D battery power.
Is it F power when they were like the 3rd or 4th worst in terms of home runs in the postseason? Weirdly.
Yes, because it's a small sample size and it's a fluke. That's why. Last year, like we talked about how Grichuk's numbers last year were down a little bit. He didn't hit lefties as well as he has in the past, but he still had a 203 isolated slugging against lefties. So the slugging was still there against lefties. So if you're looking for someone to hit lefties with power, like that's a guy who fits there. And we do think that there's some like underlying data there that suggests that he was a little bit unlucky against lefties last year, or just in general. Like if you look at his Savant page, everything's red. Everything is literally red. The things what he does not do well, he chases a lot, which is not what the Guardians want right now. And he also doesn't walk, but he's got great arm strength and he's still got power against lefties. You can really buy low. I mean, you might be able to get Grichuk in here on like
Jake
$2 or $3 million.
Money.
Yeah, you might be able to get him in here a lot less. The other guy that's really interesting to me, and it really depends on what position you're looking to fill and what position you think you can fill internally. Because you mentioned Yastrzemski. Are the Guardians finally tired of trying to get the Randall Grichuks to work and the Miguel Andújars and the Rob Refsnyders even? Are you tired of getting those guys to make a difference for you? Or are you willing to play in the Trent Grisham waters? Like you have the payroll this year. Going forward, the additions to your roster, not necessarily in terms of payroll, but like I know you're a little bit sketchy on Grisham. I think for a 3-year contract on Grisham, I'm a little bit less skeptical because I do buy what he did last year because a lot of what he did came away from Yankee Stadium. He was actually worse at Yankee Stadium than he was on the road. So I buy the improvements last year. The question is, how consistent will he be going forward? Because we talk about consistency, and that has not been there for him in his career. He had, a great 2020, which we're throwing out. 2021 was good for him, and then after that, it's been pretty ugly.
Yeah, and that's just my problem there with him. It's like, 34 home runs on paper seems great, but if you combine his next 2 highest seasons, that's 32 home runs. Like this is an out of nowhere age 28 season, which we've seen for other guys.
He's not hitting 30 home runs again.
But
Whatever he hits next year, I guarantee will be more than what the Guardians have had in the outfield the last 10 years.
The interesting thing with him is he's got, at least in the past, he had decent speed. His BABIP wasn't great this year, but it's also, he's a guy who's carried a low BABIP for his entire career. I just worry I don't like buying high. And there's no doubt in my mind that he's never going to approach a 129 WRC plus again. But I mean, I guess the question is like, as always, it's the cost. Like I saw Tim Britton had him at 17 million a year. Like I'm willing to consider that.
He did not hit lefties last year, by the way. It was pretty awful against lefties.
He's a platoon bat, which is a problem. So hey, sign him and Grichuk, and you got a right field combo.
There you go. All right, I got one more name I want to mention in the outfield. We'll talk about the free agent market, and then we'll talk about whether or not the Guardians are more likely to get an upgrade in their outfield internally, externally, trades, or free agents. We'll finish that up on today's Locked On Guardians. Oh, the NBA is back, friends, and there is no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel. They are the official betting sports partner of the NBA. So if you miss the start of a game, or maybe you want to ride the hot hand during the game you're watching, you like what you're seeing, you think you got some kind of insight, FanDuel has live bets and everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks, and you can combine all of those live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. When I do it, I go big or go home with the big payouts. Even if I'm being responsible, I still like to go big. Hey, Cavs are giving up 11 points to the 76ers at home tonight. You might have Darius Garland back. You might get Jarrett Allen back, and maybe Sam Merrill. So that could be something interesting into your parlay. If you want to check that out right now, head over to FanDuel because they're giving Locked On Guardians customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 wins. Your first $5 bet wins if you're a new customer. So head over to FanDuel.com, sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Hey, if you like what you're hearing here on Locked On Guardians, maybe you want more, right? We've got plenty more for you out there. You could follow Jeff and I on social media. Jeff is Jeff MLB Draft everywhere you can find baseball content. I am at JL_baseball on whatever they're calling Twitter these days, and then JL Baseball as well on Blue Sky. And you can also join the Insider Program at joinsubjects.com/LockedOnGuardians, where we are giving insiders some information when we get it. We're talking about the offseason together. We are also, doing monthly chats over on Google Meet. And we got some bonus content from time to time as well. Mailbags, some additional topics, some written content as well. Jeff, I know you got some stuff out there. What were you going to share the other day? Was it your
I finished my mock. I 100%. I have my whole mock. I got to share it with you so you can get it in there. And I'll also share the data from the top players by WAR, not in. Before we dive into this next section, people, you talk about power. People always want to talk about power. It's fun. And, it's a big part of baseball. Can I ask you this question? How many outfielders last year in all of baseball had 30 or more home runs?
Outfielders only?
Yes.
I'm going to say 6.
No, it's more than that. It's 13. It's twice that, but still, for 30 teams, there's 13. Very quickly, Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, Joe Adell, Taylor Ward, Riley Green, Brian Buxton, Trent Grisham, George Springer, Julio Rodriguez, Seiya Suzuki, Corbin Carroll, Pete Crow Armstrong, and James Woods. Several of those guys being untouchables. 2 of them are guys we've discussed heavily on this show as trade candidates through the years, though, in Suzuki and Ward.
Yeah, and now we're talking about Trent Grisham, who hit 30.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we don't think he'll ever come close. I mean, Taylor Ward at this point is just not happening. Let's just be honest. Like, I just don't see the Angels doing it. The Angels don't do what they're supposed to do. If the Angels do what they're supposed to do, they would have traded Mike Trout. They would have traded Ohtani.
Then they have a lame duck GM who has to win.
And manager. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're both on 1-year contracts. So they're not going to trade Taylor Ward when they have to win or their job is gone.
And he's essentially their best player at this point, Taylor Ward is.
Yeah, it's like you got him and Joe Adell, and
Zach Neto.
Yeah, I mean, and Neto's been fantastic. That's a draft eval I got wrong.
Yeah,
but
there's one more name I want to throw out to you. By the way,
yeah, I'm sorry, I got off topic. You go ahead.
No, you're good. There's one more name. One of our insiders brought this name up, and I was a little bit sketchy on him. And I still kind of am, but you're looking for someone who's a little more consistent. What do you think about Ryan O'Hearn? Now, it really depends on what outfield spot you're trying to fill. He has some regression this year if you look at his savant data from a year ago, but he still hits the sweet spot for how much that matters. He walks, he doesn't strike out a ton. He's middle of the pack in chase. Now he has terrible arm strength, but he has great range. So he's kind of the opposite of what the Guardians have been doing outfield wise. But he's a passable defender in the outfield. He's not awful. So, I'd be very curious to see what it looked. He played 149 innings last year in right field, and in that right field time, he had a 0 outs above average. So he can't be any worse than Nolan Jones was. It's just he won't have any arm.
Yeah,
so
a lot of his value this year was first base. Like he's a good, like his outs above average is in the red.
You don't need
his time
another left-handed hitting first baseman. Yeah. But he was a 0 outs above average in right field. I'll take the 0 because it looks like he's got decent range. He's not going to hurt you, and you can always. I'm sorry, it says -1 outs above average in right field.
Yeah,
there's no arm, but you know what? I'm willing to do that if you're gonna get me some power. He's a platoon guy. I think he's someone who probably gets more money than you'd like, just because the market's so depressed, or at least it's thin. But like I see on Fangraphs right now, they've got him at 2 years, $24 million over the 2 years, so $12 million for the next 2 years. I think I could live with that on Ryan O'Hearn. He actually hit lefties last year, by the way, in limited opportunities. He wasn't a straight up platoon guy. He actually had a 135 WRC plus against lefties and a 125 against righties. And I don't think his average on balls in play was inflated by any means. Yeah, it was a little bit inflated.
It was.
But not,
yeah, it was very inflated last year. A 330 for a guy whose career is closer to
300,
296. I mean, and that 330 is really bumping it up. And his big years have been with inflated BABIPs. And the other thing,
even projection next year has him at a 111 WRC plus and 13 home runs. That still would be pretty nice in right field for the Guardians.
Here's the thing: his savant page, the one thing you just said is launch angle sweet spot. What we know is that's worthless. That doesn't matter because it's about barreling. Yeah. It's not about the sweet spot. There's a lot of who has great launch angle sweet spot? Nolan Jones. It doesn't reflect anything. So when you look at his page, it's mostly blue, except for he walks, he doesn't whiff, and the important things he doesn't do well. So I don't have an interest. I think he's a first baseman as well, especially because he's already 32. You're talking about age 33 and 34 a year. So he's more likely to move inward. He's going to turn 33 halfway in the middle of July. So you're getting him for a 33-34 and a 34-35. That he's going to have to be a first base DH by the second year of that contract, more than likely. So I think we're already seeing the decline. Like his savant page has started to shift backwards, and I just think this is,
even though he had the best year of his career this past year, you're saying he's in decline.
His savant page was in decline. I mean, if you look at the shifting and his hard hit and everything else, the batted ball data, the reason he had a good year, he had his best year, is because he had a BABIP that was out of control. And we've seen that. Sometimes guys have those years where more things fall in the normal. Baseball is the game where you can get lucky. And his best year was due to luck. I mean, like I said, go compare savant pages. It went from a lot of red last year to almost no red this year. That is a sheer sign of, and he's, like I say, turned 32 this year. Like for first baseman, we start to see decline too. So it's like when I see that shift in batted ball data with his age, I'm like, I'll let someone else pay for that.
I think this is how the offseason should go for Cleveland in terms of the outfield. I think you gauge the market on Trent Grisham. If you can't sign Trent Grisham, let's say, if you can't play, because obviously we can rule out Kyle Tucker and Cody Bellinger, right? But Trent Grisham, they're talking, I see on Fangraphs 3 years at $18 million a year. If you can't play in that market in free agency, you might as well go and see if you can lure Ref Snyder, or you can get Randall Grichuk really, really cheap, or I don't know. I just don't want to fall back on Elaine Thomas, because like plantar fasciitis just does not go away. It sticks with you. And I don't think this team can't afford this team when you're betting on guys like DeLauder and Valera to help you internally next year. I don't think you can afford to bring in Lane Thomas and say, well, we hope we get a combined 120 games out of these three guys, or 140 games out of these three guys. Like, in an ideal world, if Thomas was healthy, he'd be a nice compliment to Chase DeLauder and George Valera.
What hurts them more? signing Lane Thomas for $5 million and he gets hurt again, or signing Trent Grisham for $20 million, because I bet you he gets more than $20 million a year. I think these estimates are low with the outfield need. Signing a Trent Grisham for $20 million for 3 years, and then he's a below average player, and he turns back into a 95. I mean,
well,
there's
no such thing as a bad 1-year deal in theory, right?
Yes. So I think, giving big money to an unproven guy is more likely to blow up in your face than the 1-year cheapo.
Mm-hmm. I would be more on board with the Ref Snyders and the Grichuks than I would be Lane Thomas, even though Lane Thomas might fit more of your needs. But I think Grichuk, it's very possible Grichuk has fallen off, and I think Thomas might still have another productive year. But it's a big risk to go and bet on a guy who has bad legs and a guy who has injured everything and the guy who's got plantar fasciitis. Like, there's nowhere to go. There's no floor there. Like, it's all ceiling and no floor. So I think that's a big risk. I look at it like this. I think Cleveland will probably try to bring in Thomas or Grichuk on like a minor league deal or like a really sweet 1-year deal. Maybe they'll try to talk to Ref Snyder into leaving Boston, but I really don't even think he will. I still think your biggest upgrades in the outfield are going to be internal, or you're going to make a trade. And that's
agreed.
I think the trade market is where this team plays if they're going to make I said one of my bold predictions was that they were going to upgrade the outfield some way significantly, and it's pretty clear that's not free agency. So it's got to be a trade.
Yeah. So I think we'll discuss some of those trades tomorrow, what some of the options could be. I still think overall their best chance for improvement just comes from the internal options because of it's just a greater likelihood of finding a guy who's a 120 WRC plus for a year, especially because we've seen so many young guys have one great year and then kind of get figured out. But it's definitely something to discuss. Yeah,
we'll talk more about that tomorrow. Tomorrow is Trade Talk Thursday. So we'll talk Trade Talk Thursday. We'll talk about some outfielder options the Guardians could go for. We'll talk about what the trade market might look like based on how bad this free agent market is. We're also going to talk about center field. Who is the future of the Guardians center field? They haven't had a future since Grady Sizemore. So we'll talk about how the Guardians can rectify that on our Trade Talk Thursday edition of the show. Join us. Let us know who you want.
Thank you for joining us. Remember to rate and review, download daily. It helps. And go Guardians, go.